Obviously, I've dealt with this putz before, so I'll just do it again.
Hey, bud, what are you doing?
I can't do it when people are watching. Get me the hell out of here!
20 years ago, I went to the theater to see the first Pokémon movie. I actually remember it like it was yesterday. The place was jam-packed with kids waiting in line playing the original games on their Game Boys. I still actually have the Ancient Mew promo card I got for attending it. And here I am, an adult now, in his 30s, still going to see Pokemon movies in the theater on opening day. Some things never change. I actually hadn't been to the theater since I saw The Last Jedi. I guess that movie traumatized me so bad I just subconsciously didn't want to go back to the scene of the crime. But I knew I wanted to see this movie right away so I could make a video on it. And unlike The Last Jedi, Detective Pikachu did not go out of its way to try and ruin my childhood, thankfully enough. I was very surprised at how much I liked this movie, and I wasn't really going in with like rock bottom expectations either. Just so you guys know, I'm going to start with a more broad, basic rundown, no spoilers, and then I'll give you fair warning and head into talking about some spoilers. The world of Pokemon setting was done in a way that I think will definitely satisfy the imagination of longtime fans of the franchise, as well as be enjoyable to people who aren't very familiar with it. It's definitely not overbearing for the newcomers. Like within the first 10 minutes or so, the world is set up, like what are Pokemon, how do people interact with them, that whole deal. So even if you're, say, a fan yourself and you're bringing someone to see this movie who doesn't have that much knowledge of Pokemon, they're not going to get lost in the world building aspect. And I thought it was just great seeing this real world environment filled to the brim with Pokemon. Again, as someone who grew up with this stuff, this is what I imagined it would be like if Pokemon were real. Seeing them just naturally inhabiting the space was pretty special. Like many others, I was concerned about them looking kind of creepy with this realistic take they were going for, but I think you do get used to the style pretty quick, and it's definitely not the Pokemon themselves that are the creepiest part of this movie. Well, kind of sorta, but I'll get into that in the spoiler section. And of course they're well done, like the quality of the CG is high. But as a movie, this is, just as the title states, very much a detective movie, just set in the Pokemon world. Don't expect much talk about catching and training Pokemon, or getting gym badges, any of that stuff, which I was grateful for. Between the games and the anime, I think there's enough of that out there anyway. Plus, it helps cater to that broader audience. Again, this is a detective movie deeply seated in the genre. We're talking dark alleyways, hole-in-the-wall diners. This is probably the literal darkest Pokemon movie there ever will be, as much of it takes place in low-lit environments. With the contrast of neon lighting that fills much of the space. Like I said in my commentary on the first trailer, I noted it was very Blade Runner-esque, and that runs pretty much through the whole film. I really like that, and keeping with the detective theme, there is, of course, plenty of mystery that delivers some solid twists, and there are subtle nuggets placed very deliberately, throughout the film that come into play later on, so if you do see this, make sure you're paying attention while you're watching. In terms of the cast, Ryan Reynolds is obviously the star attraction, and man, he pulled this role off spectacularly, in my opinion. I know many wanted Danny DeVito for the memes.
I need some trash to plug up the cut.
But with the way the character was written here, a caffeine-addicted, fast-talking, wisecracking type, you needed someone witty like a Ryan Reynolds.
I could stop whenever I want. These are just choices. Another round, extra shot, black as night. Thank you, sweetie.
There were plenty of moments that cracked me up as a result of his fantastic comedy timing in this film, which I imagine has to be much harder when you're playing a CG character and aren't actually in the scene yourself reacting to what's going on. He can be a bit heavy-handed with the zingers, I'll admit. Like sometimes they're too close together, too many coming at you too fast. And definitely not all of his jokes land, but a good amount of them do. And he's balanced out well with his co-star Justice Smith, as Smith's character Tim, who's searching for his father who may have been murdered, surprisingly enough isn't exactly in the mood for jokes. So he plays the straight man role, keeping with the common crime movie themes, they work as a buddy cop duo. Smith is also young and without much life experience, which gives Pikachu plenty of opportunities to make fun of him. I really enjoyed this pairing, and they do a fine job of developing a bond between the two throughout the film, so when things do get serious, you'll be pulling for both of them to make it through. The film also has a strong supporting cast with the likes of Ken Watanabe and Bill Nye, both of whom are A-tier, seasoned actors, and give the film a stronger sense of realism. Like, yes, we're in this fantasy environment where yellow rodents run around emitting electric bolts from their body, but we're also dealing with some heavier themes, so their performances help keep things grounded a bit more. Like, we're not just on some wacky Pokemon ride. Catherine Newton, who plays the reporter Lucy and ends up tagging along with Tim and Pikachu, did a fine job as well. There really wasn't any performance that I didn't like or thought was cringy, which I was worried may happen going in. You never know with these kids' movies, sometimes characters are just done way too over the top, but did not feel like that was a problem at all here. It's definitely one of the best video game adaptations ever done, which I know isn't saying much, but I think it has something that will keep everyone, young or old, fan or newcomer, engaged throughout. Obviously, if you're a fan, I think you should check this out. You're going to get so much more appreciation out of the subtle things they sprinkled in there, and you'll certainly find yourself playing Who's That Pokemon in many of the scenes, but also don't expect things to get crazy deep into the Pokemon lore or anything. I guess not going too deep into the Pokemon aspect may be a bit of a letdown to some, but like I said, it makes the movie more inviting, even if you're not familiar with the series, but say you just like quality kids movies, maybe you're like a Disney fan or something like that. I think you should consider checking this out. Alright, that's going to do it for the non-spoilers. Now I'm going to move into the spoilers section. So one last warning, if you want to avoid major spoilers, close the video now. Alright, now that all the casuals who didn't see this movie opening day are gone, let's actually start right at the beginning. I love that they began the movie with Mewtwo's big escape, setting you up to assume that Mewtwo would be the main villain here. This poor guy he just can't get these damn scientists to leave him alone, can he? Early on, I also liked Tim's reasoning for not being into Pokemon. Like, it's hard for me to believe that any kid living in this world wouldn't be obsessed with Pokemon growing up. But having your mom die on the day you're set to begin your big Pokemon journey, that I think could just about do it. Again, probably won't be remembered as the cheeriest Pokemon film ever made. As I said, Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu was great, just owned pretty much every scene. The amnesia angle set up a lot of interesting moments. As we'd find out, Pikachu was Harry's partner Pokemon, Tim's father, who they're set out on finding. He was in a car wreck with Harry, which gave Pikachu amnesia. Like, one such instance that I really liked was the underground Pokemon arena, where we had Pikachu, he starts off all tough at first, talking smack, and then he realizes once he gets into the cage that he forgot how to use all of his abilities. The whole arena sequence actually was a good way, I felt, to get some Pokemon battling in there while maintaining the detective feel of the movie. Obviously, you don't have much reason in this story for trainer battles, but needing to interrogate one of the ringleaders of this illegal fight club to find out more about this R drug that's making Pokemon go crazy was fitting. And my favorite Pokemon of all time, Gengar, was featured prominently in these fights. Looked super cool. The Charizard that Pikachu had to face with all the scars on his face from their previous battle was extra intimidating. For reasons like that, I prefer the way they went with the Pokemon looking less cartoony, more realistic. I know that's kind of a subject of debate. That's definitely something I'm going to want to know more of from you guys. Do you wish the Pokemon looked a little bit more cartoony, true to the original forms, or did you like these realistic takes? I actually like the realistic takes because I think it helped give a different vibe to different Pokemon. Like, Pikachu is still extremely adorable, but like when the Greninja get loose in the lab, it's actually kind of creepy. Feels very Aliens-ish, especially with the way they're like running around the ceiling in that. I certainly wouldn't want to be trapped in those dark corridors with them. Psyduck also was the perfect companion for Lucy to kind of round out our team of heroes. Having him be this ticking time bomb of stress always lingering made some of the moments both more intense and hilarious at the same time. Pikachu's constant worrying about keeping Psyduck calm, that scene in the van was some of my favorite stuff in this movie. And I do want to also note what was kind of a big deal for me from the lab revelations, even though it was more of an Easter egg in the film, not super critical. But as I stated, I saw the very first Pokemon movie in the theater, and it was one of the most memorable movie experiences of my life. As we watch these lab flashbacks and they discuss the whole creation of the R drug, one scientist discusses previous events with Mewtwo, his original escape that occurred in the Kanto region 20 years ago. As in, yes, this movie, while live action, is set in the same universe as the anime, and this is the same Mewtwo that I was introduced to when I was 11 on the big screen. Actually, in the same theater I saw Detective Pikachu in. How crazy is that? Was such a cool tie-in that does kind of matter, as we'd come to find out that Mewtwo is not the villain of this film, as you would expect going in, as witnessing the bond of Harry and his Pikachu, and perhaps even Ash and his Pikachu previously, have brought Mewtwo to the conclusion that maybe humans aren't so bad. Unfortunately, just as we realize that Mewtwo isn't the main threat of the film, the true villain recaptures him and straps him with a mind control device that allows him to transfer his consciousness into Mewtwo, and thus reveals his big evil plan. Mewtwo can essentially merge humans and Pokemon, transferring the mind of a human into the Pokemon, but only while the Pokemon are in this enraged state, hence the R concoction. At face value, it seems kind of weird that he wanted to turn everyone into Pokemon, but we find out that he clearly relates more to Pokemon, sees Pokemon even as superior beings in the way they evolve and become better versions of themselves, and we see the people that were working for him was actually Ditto, changing into a human appearance. A nice touch, and the reason we find out that everyone around him wore sunglasses, which, Jesus Christ, if you thought the realistic Pokemon were creepy, how about when we saw the real people, real life actors with those Ditto eyes? That was the stuff of nightmares. This also helps the big battle at the end make a bit more sense, again, if you're, a hardcore Pokemon fan, as Pikachu has to battle Mewtwo, and in a normal one-on-one, you'd expect Mewtwo to make quick work of him, especially when a day ago Pikachu couldn't even fire off a Thunderbolt. But again, he's being controlled by someone else, so it makes sense that he wouldn't be as competent with his powerful abilities. Thus, Mewtwo is thwarted, and we get our final big twist, the reveal of Harry's whereabouts. After the car crash, Mewtwo had merged him with Pikachu. As we established, the car crash gave him amnesia, so he knew nothing about his past, even that he was actually human. I'm still kind of on the fence about this. I think it ties well in with the themes of the film. We get this nice ending that kind of showcases how the characters have evolved as people. But on the other hand, it's like this effectively kills the Detective Pikachu character, as Mewtwo does split them back apart. Like, he doesn't actually exist. If they were to do a sequel or something, that Pikachu's personality would not be the same. It was Ryan Reynolds in the Pikachu's body. So yeah, not too sure how I feel about that. Definitely let me know your thoughts on the ending. But anyway, I'm going to cut myself off here. Don't want to go too long. Like I said, I really enjoyed the movie, and I think most others will too. Again, whether you're older, younger, a fan of the series, or new to it, anywhere in between, I think you'll have a good time. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the Detective Pikachu film in the comments. How do you think this classic franchise has transitioned to live action? And how do you think it's going to be received by both fans and general audiences? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of Detective Pikachu. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and if you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter at Johnny Zakari, and join my Discord, Shy Guy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.